watu hawajakufa kwa sababu ya njaa. Anataka nani akufe ama wangapi wakufe ndio akubali.
Also tonight, 7 arrested as 2 billion shillings worth of fake dollars seized at Barclays Bank.
The customer had concealed fake currency in his personal safe deposit box against the bank's rules and regulations.
Plus, corridors of justice and egos. Judges at risk of job loss to snub JSC summons over graft allegations.
And we put a face to Nairobi's latest cowboy, the gun-wielding, flashy-living Kevin Obia.
NTV Tonight with Dennis Okari and Olive Burrows.
Thank you for making the time to join us. Our sign language interpreter tonight is David Agundoa. 2 Barclays Bank officials have been arrested following the seizure of what the police called fake cash in a client's safe deposit box at the bank's Queensway branch.
$20 million in fake currency was nabbed in an operation by DCI detectives and the flying squad. 5 other people are in police custody. Mel Mendo reports.
Barclays Bank Queensway branch was the center of attention for the better part of Tuesday afternoon. A client in the bank had stashed colossal amounts of money in a safe deposit box. Someone informed the police, and the DCI and the flying squad went straight to the branch to investigate. At the Queensway branch, detectives nabbed fake notes adding to $20 million. This converted to Kenya shillings is a whooping 2 billion. Reports indicate that the customer had kept the fake dollars in the safe deposit box for a while and was then bringing in business people with a mission to defraud them.
The customer had concealed fake currency in his personal safe deposit box against the bank's rules and regulations, which include restrictions of items which can be held in the safe deposit box.
The bank has since distanced itself from the matter.
The contents of safe deposit boxes are not part of the bank's deposits and are only known to the client.
Currently, 7 people are in police custody, including the owner of the safe deposit box and 2 Barclays Bank employees. In late February, police seized 32 billion shillings of what they called fake currency, part of which was in euros and dollars. There is a small but growing number of Kenyans who question the discoveries and whether they're really fake currency. Mel Miendo, NTV.
Turkana County residents who reside along the country's border areas say they can no longer rely on neighboring countries for help during tough times such as the drought, owing to tensions revolving around cattle rustling and banditry.
Now, those who had traveled to the neighboring countries for food and water have been sent back home. Lois Wangwe reports from the Kenya-Uganda-South Sudan border, where members of the community are facing starvation.
The Eropoi Plains along the Kenya-Uganda-South Sudan border are home to a number of Turkana clans. Here, we meet Awoi Echoman, his wives and children, on their way home from the neighboring Uganda, where they had sought to cushion themselves from the ravaging drought in Kenya.
Wamefukuzwa na ukame kutoka Kenya. Wamepanda wapi? Juu Uganda. Kufika pale wamesubiri kidogo hapo wakikulisha, lakini walipata mateso kubwa sana. Wamerudi sasa hivi vile walifukuzwa ndio wanahama ovyo ovyo. Wanatafuta mali penye iko nyasi, wanatafuta mali penye iko maji.
This is one of the hundreds of families chased away from Uganda due to a soaring relationship between the Dodoth tribe of Uganda and Kenya's Turkana community over cattle rustling and banditry. The evictions mean that such families will have to face the drought at home.
Ndio wako sasa wamefika hapa na njaa yao mingi sana.
Changamoto nyingine pia unapata kwamba ili upate maji huko lazima upeane mbuzi. Kila siku unapoenda kunywa maji lazima utoe mbuzi ndio upate maji. Bila mbuzi unakaa kiu. ama saa zingine hata unafungua huwezi pata maji.
Stringent security measures on the other side of these Lotele Hills, which act as the border point here, further discourage Turkanas from this region from seeking help in food-rich Uganda.
Ukienda Uganda unaambiwa usikuje na bunduki. Unajua wanaamini sana bunduki ya kwamba ni fimbo ya karibu. Ndio wanaona kwamba hawana usalama. Wao ndio usalama wao. So wanasema wanaenda naye ndio mambo yoyote, jambo lolote likitokea wanaweza kimbilia.
This is the picture in many parts of Turkana. Starvation is rife at Oropoi village. Was later, we catch up with Awoy's family, still on the move and under the scorching sun on their journey back home. At lunchtime, some little shade under a tree is their only way of refreshing themselves. They lack water and food, but keep on with the journey seeking survival. Oropoi border point is home to a number of clans from Turkana community, a majority of whom are facing starvation. They too must deal with the situation at home. Lois Ngoiri, NTV, in the county of Turkana.
Staying with that story, leaders in Tiati Baringo County today clashed over the drought situation in the region, which has claimed several lives. Despite the worsening conditions, the government has maintained that the situation is not as bad and there have been no deaths caused by the hunger.
Area leaders insist the situation is distressing and that more than 10 deaths have been reported in the vast county. Local leaders say senior government officials have targeted a local chief for revealing the truth about deaths caused by the drought.
Several people have reportedly died of hunger-related complications in Tiati Baringo County, while hundreds of others face starvation as the ongoing drought takes its toll. Frail faces of children, the elderly and expectant mothers were the hardest hit by the calamity. Dozens of livestock have also perished due to lack of water and pasture. Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa was in Baringo County to distribute relief food to affected families. The CS had earlier said that there was enough food to get for all Kenyans and there was no cause for alarm.
Tuko na magunia karibu milioni 4 ya mahindi. So kama nimeleta 1,000 hapa, mujue next week mkihitaji tena tutaleta ingine.
However, area leaders strongly castigated the national government over its denial and failure to address the problem of hunger that has caused death of several residents of Baringo County.
You know, it's embarrassing to say kwamba watu wako na njaa na labda wengine wamekufa namna hii. I understand. Lakini kama situation ni mbaya, isemwe ni mbaya.
I don't know mwenye anasema watu hawajakufa kwa sababu ya njaa. Anataka nani akufe ama wangapi wakufe ndio akubali. Ambia yeye ateremke.
Provincial administration would like to say theirs, na sisi representative of the people would like to say ours. Sasa tutakutana tarehe ngapi? Ndio tuseme ukweli juu ya raia. So why do we want to say hakuna njaa Pokot lakini iko njaa Turkana? Kwani Turkana wanaishi Kenya nyingine?
Data from the National Disaster Management Authority indicates that over 70,000 people in Baringo County are facing starvation. Last week, Kositei Sub-Location Chief Jack Ronay said deaths linked to hunger have been reported in Kamusuk, Kositei and Sireshan, where 4 people have died. Local leaders say senior government administrators are out to punish the chief for simply telling the truth about the situation on the ground.
Hakuna mtu anaweza sema mtu amekufia hapa na kumbe ni kitu kingine imewekwa ndani. Tunajua watu wanakufa kila siku.
In Silale, those who succumb to hunger kwa sababu ya hii ni watu 17. Na ukitaka nikupeleke in every household.
Over 1,000 bags of relief food were distributed at Nginyang in Tiati constituency. Local leaders described the famine situation as dire and have called for urgent distribution of relief food to avert more deaths.
Now, just how realistic is it for the government to construct 31 dams before the start of the rainy season, which is expected to commence in less than a month's time? Well, that's achievable, according to the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Mwangi Kiunjuri, who made the announcement during the Deputy President's briefing on the drought situation in the country Monday afternoon.
Mwangi Kiunjuri's remarks indicating that the government will build dams for water storage in anticipation of the rainy season appears far-fetched.
We have put into place about 31 dams that are going to be constructed before the rains.
and also small pans for household, whereby so far we have done 8,000, and we want to hit 10,000 before the onset of the rains.
Kinjuri's announcement comes at a time when the controversial construction of the Aror and Kimwarer dams that has cost taxpayers 21 billion shillings so far is yet to start in Elgeyo Marakwet. In addition, the construction of the 40 billion shilling Itari Dam in Nakuru County also stalled after the Italian contractor CMC Di Ravenna filed for bankruptcy. The Italian firm was also contracted to build the Aror and Kimwarer dams. Experts estimate that a single permanent dam can cost up to billions of shillings to construct, and it's therefore not feasible for the government to construct a total of 31 dams in less than a month. Still, the government believes it will have the dams just ready in time to store between 100,000 and 500,000 cubic metric per dam.
And that will now add the issue of us mitigating every time there is drought. We are coming up with a new plan.
The experts are saying there will be a pendulum swing straight to floods. We're expecting from the Mets that rains will start at the end of this month or next month. We are preparing to ensure that those floods, when they start, we have worked together. We have early warning systems and mechanisms set.
As we anticipate rains next month, we have the capacity to harvest and store that water.
Interestingly, the devolution CS, his agriculture counterpart, and Treasury CS, who attended the drought assessment emergency meeting at the Deputy President office, were all grilled at the DCI headquarters last week regarding the 21 billion Aror and Kimwarer scandal.
Let us all keep our eyes on the ball.
Efforts to get a response from the Agriculture Cabinet Secretary on the exact budget allocation and specific areas where the 31 dams will be constructed in less than a record 4 weeks from now were futile. The Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture announced that the government's strategic planning for intervention started in June 2018 and that its implementation is already underway. Seth Olale, NTV, Nairobi.
At least 6 judges of some of the country's top courts risk losing their jobs should they be found guilty of charges of abuse of office and gross misconduct. The judges, who include 2 from the Supreme Court, are set to appear before the Judicial Service Commission to answer to the charges. Some have said they will not honor the summons, setting the stage for a protracted battle with the JSC, which is tasked with disciplining the judicial officers. NTV's Silas Apollo reports.
In a notice issued by the Judicial Service Commission, about 6 judges, 2 from the Supreme Court, have cases to answer after a number of petitions were filed against them. The 6 are Justices Jackton Ojwang and Njoki Ndung'u, both of the Supreme Court, Justice Njagi Marete, James Wakiaga, Richard Mwongo and Mary Muthoni Gitumbi, all of the High Court. The 6 have been charged with issuing biased and predetermined judgments, receiving bribes to influence decisions, abuse of office, gross misconduct, among other offences. Justice Ojwang faces accusations of conflict of interest and impropriety. Justice Marete is accused of delivering a biased ruling in favour of union officials in a case pitting Kenya Plantation Workers Union and the Kenya Tea Growers Association. Justice Wakiaga, on the other hand, has been accused of corruption, while Justice Gitumbi is set to respond to accusations of delaying a ruling. Justice Wakiaga today appeared before the JSC to answer to the allegations filed against him, with Justice Ndung'u of the Supreme Court set to appear tomorrow. But even as this went on, it has emerged that one of the petitions filed against Justice Ojwang and Justice Ndung'u has been withdrawn, a decision that has seen some of the judges boycott summons. Lawyer Paul Mboya, who had filed a petition seeking the removal of the 2, withdrew his complaint on ground that the JSC had failed to look into the matter 3 years after it was filed. Mboya, in a letter to the JSC, says, and I quote, "It is my view that the JSC has fallen foul of the provisions of the law, and I do not wish to countenance the infringement of His Lordship and Ladyship's rights to administrative action, which is expeditious, efficient, lawful, reasonable, and procedurally fair." He goes on to say, "For the above reasons, this is to notify you that I respectfully decline the invitation to appear before the JSC. By this letter, I request that the complaint be marked as withdrawn." Already, Justice Ojwang has written to the JSC arguing that he will not honor the summons and will instead be represented by his lawyers, a request the Commission has declined according to sources. Besides the Mboya petition, Justice Ojwang is also facing other petitions seeking to remove him from office for abuse of office and corruption allegations. As pressure mounts on Chief Justice David Maraga to rein in on some of the rogue magistrates and judges in the judiciary, more focus will be on the Judicial Service Commission, the body tasked with appointing and disciplining judges. Silas Apollo, NTV.
Detectives investigating how city lawyer Asa Nyakundi shot and killed his 29-year-old son have found an assortment of firearms at the lawyer's home. This, even as conflicting reports emerge on how many bullets the lawyer fired from his Glock pistol in an incident he claims was an accident. Zainab Ismail with the latest on the mystery shooting.
Detectives have found more firearms and bullets during a search in the home of lawyer Asa Nyakundi, who claims to have accidentally shot his son near the house in Muthaiga. The search unearthed 2 guns, a pistol SIG Sawa and a shotgun rifle, together with 471 rounds of ammunition kept in different rooms in the house and firearms certificates bearing the lawyer's name. An inspection of the lawyer's motor vehicle found 1 spent cartridge of 9mm caliber under the mat of the front passenger seat. A bullet head of the same caliber was also found in the boot. Bloodstains were also found on the upper left side of the back seat, with a bullet hole visible on the seat. The firearm in question, which is now an exhibit, was loaded with 13 rounds of 9mm ammunition and not 14 as earlier thought, and is undergoing ballistic exams at the DCI headquarters. Police have submitted the firearm certificates and identification cards to the Firearms Licensing Board for verification. Investigations into how Nyakundi drove all the way to a hospital in the Parklands neighborhood with his son bleeding in the back seat before driving back to the Muthaiga police station to report the incident forms a crucial part of the investigation. The lawyer's statement to the police indicated that he accidentally shot his son, who was on the back seat, as he holstered his revolver. Nyakundi is currently admitted at the Nairobi hospital after suffering blood pressure complications while in custody. The body of the deceased is still at the Aga Khan mortuary awaiting a post-mortem examination. Zainab Ismail, NTV.
Now that story features tomorrow in the Daily Nation in detail. Investigations into the circumstances under which city lawyer Asa Nyakundi shot and killed his son have taken a new twist after detectives stumbled upon 471 rounds of ammunition and 2 more guns in his house. The lawyer is a licensed gun holder, and detectives are trying to understand why he needed such a cache of arms. Find all these details in the Daily Nation tomorrow. The story of a prominent lawyer, his guns, and a dead son. Do not miss your copy. Now, police are finalizing investigations and will charge in court a man caught on security cameras terrorizing a security guard in Nairobi's Kileleshwa estate. The man, now identified as Kevin Obia, was arrested yesterday and his gun confiscated, but is out on police bond. NTV reports that this isn't Kevin Obia's first brush with the law.
In the CCTV footage, 3 young men are seemingly engaged in a heated verbal exchange with a security guard. The exchange turns violent, with one of the young men hurling a bottle at the guard. But it is this action of one of them drawing his gun and menacingly approaching the guard that has landed him in the crosshairs of the law enforcement officers.
We will kill you, we will kill you.
The man has since been identified as Kevin Obia. He was picked up by the police yesterday. The firearm that he brandished with near reckless abandon has been withdrawn. Police say they are seeking to establish whether the firearms registration certificate that Kevin Obia presented to them to prove that he is a licensed gun holder is legitimate. He was released on police bond and is set to be charged in court. It won't be the first time Kevin will be in the dock. The man, described in the media that is both mainstream and the blogs as a flamboyant businessman, has previously been charged with pretending to be in a position to sell 7 kilograms of gold to one Mr. Galati, for which he fraudulently obtained 13.7 million shillings during a meeting at a hotel in the Nairobi city centre. Kevin Obia, alias Kevin Clay, alias The Dawn, does paint the image of a man who is not afraid of showing off his wealth. His social media presence awash with images of a life of luxury. He is often photographed beside high-end luxury cars and houses. He rubs shoulders with personalities in the social limelight and frequents the IT social places. The source of his wealth, however, remains the subject of unanswered questions and wild speculation. Police are expected to charge him by Thursday this week.
Following the government's denial that anyone had died from the drought, the hashtag #WeCannotIgnore has been gathering space online.
Well, journalists who have been to some of the badly affected areas have been sharing some of the pictures and information gathered from the ground, just to sample a few. There's one here where several people have been making these comments over 10 hours ago, and the hashtag is still trending, where this is, let me just go to this one very, very quickly. Okay.
Let me help you. This is...
Okay. Karen, who says, our children will inevitably find a world where there are no real advantages associated with one's gender. Anyone can love and marry anybody regardless of their gender. No race is or appears superior to another, whether we like it or not. We cannot ignore. Okay, that's just one of the issues that was raised there. There's one here says that the only problem we have with our Kenyan leaders is that most of them choose to drink champagne for a few instead of water. For many, it's such a disaster. There's another one up here where someone, this is Mwaneki Mwas, who says, let me just click on that one right there. This is Mwaneki Mwas, or before Mwaneki, this is Lena Skaikai, who had earlier posted and said, if hunger is not killing them, then the government must immediately stop these Turkanas from working themselves out to death in their air-conditioned gyms, with a very, very sad picture there of one of those who's starving in Turkana.
And on that note, we take a break. Thank you for keeping it NTV Tonight. Neno Evangelism Center's head pastor James Nganga has been charged with threatening to kill journalist Linus Kaikai and incitement to violence.
The controversial televangelist, who has been in custody since Sunday, was today released on a 200 shillings bail or a 300 shillings bond. Mark Masai reports on the self-proclaimed Chief General.
Pastor James Nganga would be more at home addressing a congregation as he does at his Neno Evangelism Center, but in Principal Magistrate Justice Kituku's courtroom in Kiambu today, he was listening intently to charges read out to him. Charges that the pastor threatened to kill journalist Linus Kaikai and making pronouncements that amounted to incitement to violence. He denied the charges leveled against him based on this video posted around the 10th of March.
My friend, you will face the consequence.
The defense team tried to get Principal Magistrate Justice Kituku to stop any further media coverage of their client James Nganga.
If you can issue orders kindly that this matter should not be covered in any way, that will be unlawful.
But that was not granted, and the case will be back in court for mention on the 3rd of next month. Those have not been the only charges hovering over Pastor Nganga's head, and not the first time he has been in court. A little over a year ago, Nganga was acquitted of charges of killing Mercy Ngoiri through dangerous driving at this area called Manguo in Limuru along the Nairobi-Nakuru highway on July 26, 2015. On May 7th last year, Chief Magistrate Godfrey Odwor, in his ruling read on his behalf by Senior Principal Magistrate Karen Jalale, said the evidence of key witnesses who claimed to have spotted the pastor at the scene of the accident was not enough to nail him. There could be a glimmer of hope, however, for the family of the late Mercy Ngoiri, as the Director of Public Prosecutions is set to appeal the acquittal of televangelist James Nganga at the High Court. Mark Masai, NTV.
Now, why would the Deputy President and politicians allied to him want to choose who should investigate corruption cases? Why would the DP go against the will of the presidency, for which he represents, and attack the DCI, an institution he played a part in empowering?
These questions have been on Kenyans' lips as trouble brews in the Jubilee paradise over the anti-graft war. And as Kennedy Mureithi reports, the president and his deputy appear to be drifting apart each passing day.
The recent attacks on the Director of Criminal Investigations and his office over their role in fighting corruption from the Deputy President William Ruto and his allies have exposed the political undertones that could mar the fight on graft and the cracks within Jubilee. Over the weekend, DP Ruto led 15 legislators from the Rift Valley in denouncing the DCI over his involvement in investigating graft, especially the Kimwarer and Aror dams, which have so far consumed about 7 billion shillings.
Watu wakora waende watumie ofisi ya DCI kuendesha porojo na propaganda inayolenga kuhujumu na kusabotage programs ya serikali ya dams na programs zingine kwa malengo ya kisiasa.
Nobody is fighting the DCI. We are only saying that we want to strengthen the fight against corruption by taking it to the officers that have the capacity and the know-how on how to fight, how to investigate, so that you get credible evidence that can withstand any defense in a court of law.
The message is clear. The Deputy President's camp is increasingly becoming uncomfortable with what Kinoti is doing.
We are not distant whatsoever. We know where we drive our mandate and the powers. We are empowered by the Constitution, by Kenyans themselves, so we shall serve Kenyans, not 2 or 3 individuals, and we should not be deterred by any noise outside there.
According to the Police Service Act 2011, the functions of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations are as outlined. 1. To collect and provide criminal intelligence, undertake investigations on serious crimes including homicide, narcotic crimes, human trafficking, money laundering and terrorism. Maintain law and order, detect and prevent crime, apprehend offenders, maintain criminal records, conduct forensic analysis, execute the directions given to the Inspector General by the Director of Public Prosecutions, coordinate country Interpol affairs, investigate any matter that may be referred to it by the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, perform any other function conferred on it by any other written law.
We have no more confidence with the office of DCI. We want all matters investigation pertaining corruption to be taken back to EACC because it is an independent, objective body.
Na tunataka kumwambia DCI aendelee kupigana na wakora, wale wanaiba pesa kule bank, wale wanafanya cattle rustling na wale waizi ndogo ndogo.
Jukumu ya DCI ni kupambana na wale wakora, wale pickpockets wako town.
For instance, when DCI told us that 20-something billion shillings had been paid as an advance payment, facts are different from what DCI is saying.
I'm sorry for those who may be misdirecting for reasons best known to them, but it's unfair to write to Kenyans, to write in a country that the National Police Service has no, mandate to fight corruption.
The EACC got a new lease of life with the entry of Mbarak Twalib as the new CEO. Mbarak has a military background and has vowed to reignite the war on corruption. But the institution has not been in good books with Kenyans over perceived lackluster performance. In 2015, the EACC was accused of misleading President Kenyatta after it gave him a list of about 175 public servants, including ministers, suspected of being involved in corruption. Most of these officials were cleared. The EACC had become a punching bag for politicians who in the past have done away with the heads of EACC for refusing to play ball. Recently, there was a push to water down the powers of the EACC as the renewed fight against graft gathered pace. The new EACC head has fostered close working relationships with the DCI and DPP. The duo have the full backing of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Kennedy Muredhi, NTV.
Well, before we take that break, we are following on the government's denial that anyone had died from the drought. We're still sampling your views and your comments. The hashtag that has been trending the whole day, hashtag we cannot ignore. Just do two quick ones here, where we have a gentleman here who says that the government doesn't really take drought crisis seriously. For instance, News Ajana, I could see some top government officials lying to Kenyans that death in Turkana could be as a result of sickness.
All right, and Carol Radul says, when I look at my paycheck and see how much the government takes away from me and millions others in the name of pay as you earn, there is more than enough to feed famine-stricken Kenyans. Please, GOK, stop wasting time and use my taxes properly.
One more here says, no, these people have been in this situation throughout the year. The government is busy doing other things as if everything is okay. What happened with Kenyans for Kenyan initiative? We need the progress of that report. Keep them coming. We take a short break. We'll be right back with more news.
It's time to look at the world of business. Welcome, I am Julian Amboko. In the wake of growing interest from Western economies such as the United States, the United Kingdom and France, China is looking to strengthen its presence in the East African region, reiterating that the projects it has funded have been successful. During a press briefing at the Chinese embassy today, the Asian nation insisted the standard gauge railway has been a success, but struggles with bad publicity. Victor Kiprop with the details.
Even before the dust could settle from last week's visit by French President Emmanuel Macron, the Chinese embassy in Nairobi called for a media briefing to highlight its growing trade and diplomatic ties with Kenya, which helped trade volumes between Beijing and Nairobi hit $5.17 billion last year. Now, at the heart of these ties is the standard gauge railway, Kenya's most expensive infrastructure project yet, which opened doors in May 2017 and has already ferried 2.5 million passengers and hauled at least 3.68 tons of cargo. But as the second phase of the project between Nairobi and Naivasha nears completion, China says the project has been bad-mouthed and painted negatively.
Some Western country or some other country said, no, this is a debt trap. If you have another 2B railway line, you will bring too much debt burden to Kenyan government.
The statement by China comes only a week after French President Emmanuel Macron's trip to the Horn of Africa, resulting in $3.4 billion worth of deals being signed in Kenya alone. During his visit, Macron repeatedly warned that China's growing economic presence in the continent was endangering the sovereignty of individual countries. Macron's visit came only a few months after British Prime Minister Theresa May visited the country, and President Uhuru Kenyatta honored US President Donald Trump's invite to the White House in trips largely seen as attempts to weaken China's grip on Kenya and the African continent. But seemingly spoiled for choices, Kenya says a cocktail will do.
Every country is different. Every country offers different ingredients. You cannot compare apples with oranges. An apple is an apple and an orange is an orange. But they're all good for you.
Having already surpassed the United States as Africa's largest trading partner a decade ago and with strong ties in nearly every African country, China's biggest challenge now remains dispelling the debt trap diplomacy fears around its rapid expansion in Africa. Victor Kiprop, NTV Business, Nairobi.
Now let's get back to matters banking slightly related to counterfeit cash. The Central Bank of Kenya is tightening the noose on money laundering, even as its regulations on large cash transactions come under rising critique from the parliament. In its latest move, CBK has invited all commercial banks, microfinance institutions and mortgage finance companies to nominate independent external third parties to review their compliance with anti-money laundering laws. The contracted third parties will be expected to submit to the CBK reports on the review of compliance by the end of May 2019. Kenya passed the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act in 2009 in a move aimed at arresting illicit flows in the economy. Last month, CBK Governor Patrick Njoroge was taken to task by the National Assembly Finance Committee over the regulations on large cash transactions it issued in January 2016. And staying with banking, the Kenya Bankers Association has welcomed last week's High Court ruling, which rendered the law capping interest rates as unconstitutional, null and void. According to the association, borrowers have no need to worry about a possible return to high interest rates in light of the ruling. The March 14, 2019 High Court ruling, which rendered the law capping interest rates as unconstitutional, has evoked fears that should the decision of the bench prevail, the country could be headed back to the reign of high interest rates. The Kenya Bankers Association, however, says that such fears are unfounded, as the Kenya Bankers Charter, whose draft was made public in August 2018, should take effect soon and protect consumers.
The central bank has issued now a banking charter, which will be effective by the end of May this year. So it addresses issues like transparency of pricing, a risk-based pricing model for customers. So if you are a good customer now, you should come back to your bank and say, this is my credit score. Many of our customers don't know their credit score. The banking charter now is going to make it mandatory for banks to make pricing based on credit customer scores.
Oigara says the charter, once adopted, will be instrumental in driving commercial banks to consumer-focused lending through adoption of pricing models that consider variation of risk across borrowers.
When we are lending at 13 today, there are customers who borrow at 7%. There are customers who borrow at 8%. There are customers today who may not be very good, they should borrow at 18%. So the most catalytic nature for the profile is to allow different customers to borrow on their levels. So because of the cap, you are not able to go back and lend beyond 14%.
A section of parliamentarians have vowed to fight to retain the caps in place. The Consumer Federation of Kenya has already filed a notice of appeal on the ruling. It is, however, still too early to tell just how the debate on rate caps will end.
And away from matters banking, the National Environment Management Authority of Kenya, NEMA, has imposed a nationwide ban on unwoven polypropylene bags effective at the end of this month. NEMA says it arrived at its decision after noticing that manufacturers of these bags were producing poor quality products which are not reusable and therefore an environmental hazard. Lillian Carrier with the details.
You now have only 10 days to exhaust the unwoven packaging bags in your house. Manufacturers, importers, suppliers and distributors will have to deplete their stocks in less than 2 weeks or face legal action for circulating the bags in the market. In a statement published today, NEMA says that it has observed that some manufacturers have infiltrated the market with poor quality bags which cannot be used for multiple purposes as intended. The authority said that the poor disposal practices currently being experienced in the country, coupled with a lack of requisite infrastructure to sustainably manage these bags, could lead to an environmental hazard. The bags, going for as low as 5 shillings, have gained popularity in markets and retail stores across the country. This could adversely hurt small businesses, which are still grappling to find a proper packaging solution to the use of plastic bags 2 years ago. According to the notice, the authority has not outlawed woven gunny bags and cartons, which are still permissible and can serve as an alternative. Users and dealers of the unwoven bags will have to wait until the Kenya Bureau of Standards gazettes guidelines that will inform the quality of non-woven bags in the country. Lillian Kiarie, NTV.
And we wrap up the bulletin with a matter on the agriculture sector, and dairy farmers in the North Rift region have urged the government to regulate the quality of animal feeds in the market to enhance the quality of milk produced. The dairy farmers complain that some unscrupulous manufacturers are selling substandard feeds, hence resulting in low productivity. They further urge the government to fast-track the implementation of quality-based payment as opposed to the current situation where it is based on quantity. Feeds contribute to over 60% of the cost of milk production. At the moment, a 50 kg bag of dairy meal in Eldoret is selling at 2,000 shillings, up from 1,700 shillings.
These quality-based payment systems of milk, of course, will come about testing the aflatoxin levels. But my urge to the government is if that can be tightened so that we don't have these very compromised feeds that everybody is just rushing to pick.
And that's it for the Business Bulletin tonight. I'm Julian Samboko, but coming up, we have Cyclone Idai's trail of death and destruction and more stories for you.
Welcome back. Now, the second term of the Jubilee administration, especially after the historic handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga, has been dogged with glaring divisions in the presidency.
President Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto are openly and fiercely divided on major issues facing the country.
President Kenyatta is pushing for his administration's renewed war on graft and boosting the capacity of the multi-agency anti-corruption team, including the Directorate of Criminal Investigations and Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. On the other side, Deputy President William Ruto has accused the multi-agency team, particularly the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, of using the war on graft to target certain people and projects, especially from his backyard.
I want to ask that as we prosecute the war against corruption, it must not be a war that is targeted at certain people or certain projects predetermined for political reasons.
While President Kenyatta insists his handshake with Raila Odinga will unite the country and create an environment for growth and prosperity, his deputy has accused Raila Odinga of taking advantage of the handshake to destroy the Jubilee Party. Political commentator Dr. Richard Bosire feels that Ruto is not against the handshake but against its consequences, while Herman Manyora sees Ruto as fighting back.
Because he cannot be calling shots when Uhuru is cooperating with Raila Amolo Odinga on issues of governance. He feels that he's left out.
In the art of warfare, sometimes you calculate if you are being hit the way Ruto is being targeted. Definitely is being targeted by the handshake. And there are times you realize it is in your interest to fight back.
Ruto, if his allies are anything to go by, views the handshake as an obstacle to his 2022 presidential bid.
Even if the president would have changed his mind, he's still within his democratic rights. And Ruto should negotiate. There should be negotiation. These are boardroom issues. They should not play out here.
From the time Uhuru and Raila shook hands, don't be cheated by anybody. There is only one agenda in this country. And that is how they will manage the succession. There is forget about development. There is nothing. Corruption, the new agenda, big thing, that's a lie. It's nothing.
President Kenyatta has come out strongly calling for lifestyle audit for all public servants, starting with himself. However, DP Ruto later came out insisting that the famous lifestyle audit only started and ended with him, arguing that no other person has been audited so far. As President Kenyatta shies away from politics while calling on implementation of the Big Four agenda to form part of his legacy, Ruto's allies have been seen perpetrating the politics of our man Ruto is being targeted for isolation. Despite the glaring divisions, President Kenyatta appears helpless since he cannot fire his deputy as in previous regimes. Based on the new constitution, the DP can only lose his seat on the basis of incapacitation or impeachment.
Because he knows that the president cannot fire him, it's only the impeachment that can work because he's not incapacitated. Therefore, he plays the politics. You play the politics of survival.
Whether the Jubilee administration and the original partnership between President Kenyatta and his deputy Ruto will withstand the current division in the presidency ahead of the 2022 general elections remains a matter of time will tell. Vincent Oduor, NTV, Nairobi.
And on that note, sports is up next with Warode Kiro.
in association with Nivea Dry Fresh Deodorants.
A very good evening to you. It is time to play on NTV tonight. I am Warothe Kiro. It appears to be a he said, she said situation as the National Sevens rugby team senior players have denied receiving letters of offer from the Kenya Rugby Union, contrary to a statement released by the union Monday night. This as Shujaa and the Kenya Leonesses continue training on a substandard pitch that is at RFUA, bearing the brunt of neglect. The tug of war pitting KRU and Shujaa is occurring ahead of the KRU elections, which are set for tomorrow. Sean Kadovilis with the details.
After months of being a no-show, senior national team players showed up for training at the RFUEA grounds on Tuesday morning. With Kenya 7 staring at relegation from the World Rugby 7 series, the senior players had been enticed with the prospect of a letter of offer from the Kenya Rugby Union that was scheduled to run until the end of the season. The players, who included former captain Andrew Amonde, all-time second top try scorer Colin Sinjera and 7-star William Mbaka trained, but when it was time to receive their letters, the union stalled. Speaking to NTV, union officials insisted that a return to work formula had been agreed on, but according to at least 3 senior players who spoke to NTV Sport, this is not the case. According to the players, until a letter of offer is presented and signed, then it would be futile to keep up the appearance of training. As the tug-of-war pitting Shujaa players and KRU unfolds, the reality is that Kenya 7s lies 14th on the World Series log with 18 points, just 4 above Japan, who occupied the last relegation spot. As the relationship between players and union withers, grass at the RFUEA grounds is practically non-existent. Weeks after NTV Sport highlighted the issue, no change is evident, with wrangles between the union and Kenya Harlequins over who should pay for the water pump that broke down months ago, leading to the appalling state of the pitch. RFUEA grounds is now an injury risk to national squads training and to the Kenya Cup players. All this doom and gloom ahead of the KRU election set for Wednesday, where the chairman's post is one of the seats up for grabs, with former KRU Vice Chairman Sasha Mutai being a front-runner, alongside current KRU Director Jeff Gangler. A former director, Asiko Awiro, is also on the chairman's ballot.
It's time for new blood. I've been there as a director for 4 years, in charge of the Kenya Sevens team. I was there as a Vice Chairman of Kenya Rugby, Chairman of Safari Sevens.
I had a 5-point plan in my manifesto of 2016. One was looking at the issue around governance, putting in place the governance structures, and we did that. We now have a board charter, which never existed. We now have a finance manual. We have a code of ethics, and that took time.
And unlike in previous years, candidates elected will serve 4-year terms instead of the traditional 2 years. Sean Carter-Villis, NTV.
And now the drama at Ngong Road continues, because this is a letter that we've just received from the KRU, and it reads, and I'll just read it because it is important. The Kenya Rugby Union is in receipt of a request to postpone tomorrow's AGM to a later date by the Ministry of Sports, Culture and the Arts. This is to facilitate for a stakeholders meeting with the Cabinet Secretary for Sports. The board is in consultation with the ministry and will advise in due course. We beg your indulgence in the matter. So that is the latest in as far as the Kenya Rugby Union is concerned. We will keep you up to date with it as it unfolds. And now on to football, and the road to the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations continues for the Harambee Stars, with the final group stage qualifier against Ghana lined up on Saturday in Accra. Despite Harambee Stars having already qualified for AFCON 2019, the road to AFCON is strewn with bumps as finances continue being a challenge, and a definite first 11 is still a puzzle for coach Sebastian Minye. Ida Waringa reports.
Harambee Stars players going through their paces on the second day of training ahead of their final AFCON 2019 group stage qualifier match. Head coach Sebastian Minye will have to make do without Ayub Timbe, Abud Omar, Michael Olunga and Brian Mandela due to suspensions and injuries. With the match against the Black Stars being a dead rubber, Minye and FKF decided to give priority to the Under-23 AFCON qualifier against Sudan. However, the match against Ghana gives a chance for fringe Harambee Stars players to audition.
The deal is with the players to show me their quality. Some of them will have the opportunity to show me their quality. For example, I think Masoud will play. It will be a good opportunity for him to show me if he can compete with Folunga.
25 players took part in Tuesday's training, including captain Victor Wanyama, as well as new kid on the block, Christopher Mbamba, a winger who plays in the Swedish Division 1.
Play team kama Ghana, tunaweza learn a lot, but tunatafuta pia ku build up from there to the tournament, so tunataka ku perform poa na tupate results poa.
Yeah, the first training session was good. Yesterday we had a couple players here, so we put together a good session. It was good to get to know everyone. Nice to be home.
Despite the Ministry of Sport stating last week that it had released the 244 million shillings asked for by FKF, reports indicate that the money is yet to hit the FKF coffers, and travel to the match against Ghana hangs by a thread. This as Coach Menyei is still lamenting about the training camp in France not being booked and paid for yet. Harambee Stars are scheduled to depart on Thursday for Ghana, with a match set for 9 p.m. Saturday night. Aida Warenga, NTV.
The National Olympic Committee of Kenya has urged the government to step in and do all it can to stop the auctioning of the Olympic Plaza that is situated in Upper Hill, Nairobi. Speaking at the current NOC headquarters located on Mombasa Road, a day after Sidian Bank put up an advert in the local dailies informing the public of intent to auction, the NOC president, Paul Tergat, stated that the local Olympic body was unable to salvage the situation. According to NOC, the government had so far written to Sidian Bank asking for time to be able to raise the funds needed. Sidian Bank loaned NOC 800 million shillings, with NOC expected to raise 400 million shillings for a total of 1.2 billion shillings. The project was tendered in July 2011, with construction starting in 2012, but has since stalled.
Once we have a place, we have a home, we have an office, now we can now put in our energy and make sure that we recruit more of staff, technical staff, who could be able to work within the National Olympic Committee full-time, so that they can be able now to do what the kind of the sports that we want.
Onto a story that's generating quite a bit of buzz right here in studio with Okari and Olive. Just shadowboxing the build-up to this weekend's World Boxing Council Super Bantamweight bout pitting Fatma Zarika and Zambian Catherine Firi will continues with Firi landing in Nairobi early Tuesday morning, eager to outsmart Zarika. The two fighters will battle it out at KCC for a second time in 15 months after Zarika outlasted Firi in 10 rounds to retain her WBC title at the Carnival Grounds in Nairobi in December 2017. Firi narrowly lost the contest through a unanimous point decision of 97-92, 98-91 and 99-92. Saturday's event, sponsored by SportPesa and dubbed Nairobi Fight Night, will feature 4 undercard fights. The tickets are on sale on mook.com, with regular tickets going for 1,000 shillings and VIP tickets at 3,000 shillings. The going got tough for Kenyan teams at the ongoing Women's African Club Championship in Cairo, Egypt, with Kenyan representatives registering mixed results. Kenya Pipeline secured its second win on the trot with a straight set win over Shooting of Egypt of 25-20. 25-15, 25-17 and 25-21. In its first match, Pipeline saw off Revenue of Rwanda by a similar scoreline. This as Kenya Prisons lost for the first time, falling 3-1 of 15-25, 25-14, 23-25 and 22-25 to GSP of Angola. In its first match, Prisons had come from behind to beat Nkumba of Uganda 3-1. In the day's final match, KCB lost 3-1 to Sporting of Egypt. And finally, the construction of an athletic stadium in Kilgoris, Narok County, as well as the secondment of athletic coaches to the region were some of the promises made during the burial of former international athlete Daniel Rudisha. Rudisha was one of Kenya's pioneer elite athletes, having represented the country during the Commonwealth Games in 1964 in Kingston, Jamaica. 4 years later, he participated in the Olympic Games in Mexico alongside Hezekiah Nyamayo, Charles Asati and the late Naftali Bond, winning silver in the 4x400 yards relay. His exploits served as an inspiration to his son, David Rudisha, who is the current 800 meters world champion. Rudisha, senior, passed away aged 74. That's your latest sporting update. And remember, the Kenya elections may or may not be on tomorrow. So we'll keep you abreast of that as it unfolds. But for now, that's your sport. I am Warote Kiru. Have a lovely night.
NTV Sport.
Go back to a question that we had asked earlier and some comments that we were looking into were following the government's denial that no one has died from the drought, and many journalists have been sharing their stories and images they've captured from the places where they've covered these extensively, showing the real picture of what's happening. We'll just go quickly for a few. Patience Nyange on Twitter says, did anyone say North Rift is too far away? What is interesting is that voter registration kits get there. 2019 census kits will get there. Politicians during campaigns will get here. Tourists will get there too. Oil drillers can get there. Journalists taking pictures will, but food cannot get there.
We also have Ron Clifford Date, who has himself been there, and this is one of the videos he took there. It's a very captivating video and has been widely shared on social media. You can see that man struggling to make his way out of his hut. And for a bit more detail, Ron Cliff says it's barely 12 hours since I met this great Mzee Lomoni Lewan, who is around 70 years old, from Lotukumo village in Nakuru sub-location, Turkana County. The hashtag we cannot ignore, and beyond press conferences.
Well, on that very, very sad note, that's where we end it. My name is Dennis Sokari.
Mine is Olive Barrows. Our sign language interpreter has been David Agundoa. Sidebar is up next.